Well, I made you take time to look at what I saw, and when you took time to really notice my flower, you hung all your own associations with flowers on my flower, and you write about my flower as if I think and see what you think and see of the flower, and I don't. That was a quote by Georgia O'Keeffe, one of America's great modernist painters. Hello, I am Mesma Belsere. I'm an artist, I'm a dancer, and a painter. And this video is a part of a series featuring inspiring quotes by artists, poets, philosophers, writers, people whose wisdom can guide us at all times. Georgia O'Keeffe is one of my favorite modernists, and I'm rather picky about my modernists, let me tell you. But when I think of O'Keeffe, I think of a wild wind blowing through the Grand Canyon. She was a fiercely independent spirit, completely untethered, and her life reads like a novel. But before we get into this quote by Georgia O'Keeffe and what it can actually teach us, I ought to mention another individual who was a very important part of O'Keeffe's life, both professional and personal. And that person is Alfred-Stieglitz. Alfred-Stieglitz was a modern art promoter in the early 20th century. And he also owned galleries in New York City, where he was promoting the contemporary artists of his time. He was also trying to get people to accept photography as an art form. It wasn't until then. Stieglitz and O'Keeffe were lovers. They were 23 years apart in age. Stieglitz was older than she. And they shared a very special relationship, mostly artistic. They wrote very, very long, copious letters to each other when they were separated, and Stieglitz was instrumental in promoting Georgia O'Keeffe in the New York art world. At one point, he also took very intimate nudes of O'Keeffe and exhibited them in his gallery, which made her a very popular figure among her peers and in the New York art world at that time. Granted that O'Keeffe was doing other kinds of work at that time, other kinds of paintings also, in addition to the grand floral paintings of floral forms that she became very famous for. It took her some time to get to that point. But what my point is that when Stieglitz exhibited her nudes, those nudes became associated with O'Keeffe, and people could not dissociate the two. At this time, it was also very fashionable to ascribe erotic meaning, erotic symbolisms to, erotic symbolism to images. Thanks to the Freudian psychology that was very fashionable at the time. And I think that O'Keeffe became, or she was rather at the receiving end of this popular trend. Men who were writers, or rather writers and critics who were mostly men at that time, emphatically ascribed erotic symbolism to O'Keeffe's floral paintings. You know, notions like womanhood is the womb. These are symbolic of a woman's private parts and all of that. This was a claim that O'Keeffe firmly denied. In fact, I remember reading a letter that she wrote to one of her woman friends asking her, this friend was a writer actually, and O'Keeffe was asking her to write about her paintings from a woman's perspective. How does a woman perceive them? I think she was looking for another kind of an interpretation for her work, something that a lot of artists crave. They want multiple perspectives to come in. Here, I would like to read another quote by Georgia O'Keeffe that I absolutely love. When people read erotic symbols into my painting, they're really thinking about their own affairs. I love that one. So the question is, what can we learn as artists from O'Keeffe's brilliance, really? You see, when we as artists put our work out in the world, some people will love it, some people will absolutely despise it, and there will be people who will say things like, it's so interesting, and you don't know where they stand. Yeah? But what is important to realize for us is that whether they like it or dislike it or prefer to remain neutral, our audience receives our work through the lens of their own perceptions. They'll bring their own associations with that particular subject matter of the art to it and judge it, which is fine. But the question is, how do we as artists remain unaffected when our work gets either misinterpreted or misunderstood or misrepresented, whether it's in the press or in the media of other kind or by our audiences? When we expose ourselves like that, we are becoming vulnerable to that kind of a thing, because it's very easy to get attached to what one creates. But at the same time, it's very important that we try to remain as unattached to our work as possible. I don't mean that we should not be open to constructive criticism. That is extremely important, that we all need to grow. But I'd like you to think about it this way, is that when you allow someone to critique your work, it is actually a giving of an honor. You're giving that person or those people the honor of critiquing your work. Therefore, it is important that that honor be given to select few who are A, knowledgeable about that subject matter, and B, who are capable of being completely objective, and that whatever they have to say about your work is unbiased and untainted by their own perceptions of it. That's a very difficult thing to do, but it is important. And this awareness has to be there if an artist wants to grow. So, what I'm saying is that if you, the artist, is really the content creator of what you're creating, yeah, if you are the original thinker, if the inspiration has come originally from you, and therefore I don't mean counterfeit art or con artists or people who appropriate images, who take someone else's image and then they do things to it and then they call it their own. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, I'm speaking to you if you are the origin of that brilliance. Then you, the artist, gets to decide to whose criticism and interpretation or guidance you give your time of your day. let me digress a little bit. Multi-million-dollar industries benefit from content creators. If the artist doesn't create what he or she creates, then what is there to write about? What is there to critique? What is there to market? What is there to do PR for? And what are museums going to show? So let me repeat that. If you are the content creator, then you get to decide to whose criticism, interpretation, or guidance you give the time of your day. That's a very roundabout way of coming back to Georgia O'Keeffe's quote. In this, she's talking to those who misrepresent her and her work, who have misunderstood her. Well, I made you take time to look at what I saw. And when you took time to really notice my flower, you hung all your own associations with flowers on my flower. And you write about my flower as if I think and see what you think and see of the flower. And I don't. So I hope that this quote by Georgia O'Keeffe was inspiring to you all, as it was to me. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, bye-bye.